I-24M slept with a girl 27F. Even though I liked her friend, I need advice. How do I deal with this? It is my first ever Reddit post, so please apologies for bad writing or anything else. I'll use fake names and places for anonymity. I'm 24M and work in a university environment. There's a girl J26F who is my supervisor and I liked her for more than a year. Before she became my supervisor, she used to be a coworker for a very short period. I was planning to ask her out as both of us were leaving the job soon. I asked her once before while she was a coworker and was leaving the job, and she told me she was seeing someone else, so I didn't ask again. A few months ago S27F joined the company. She was generally very nice to me like everyone else on the job, and we would have a good laugh whenever on shift together. I had been working on self-improvement for some time, so I would normally talk to everyone on the job and try to get to know them and be very friendly and polite. First few months honestly we weren't very close, although I would talk to her. I would normally go to the university in the same building where we all worked to do my normal coursework or self-learning. I was sat once and S came up to me and we had a really long convo. Same day we had another long convo again while I was sat on the same place again, although the conversations in my head were very awkward, as in I couldn't find any chemistry. I'm normally very bad at small talk, so I can only have deep convos, and I also try and ask questions and listen to other people, part of self-improvement. I'm also sometimes very anxious and other times very confident. S shared a lot of stuff with me, deep traumatic stuff and I assume she probably felt a lot closer to me after that, and I also told her some things about my personal development, but I never shared anything traumatic. When we left the building it was dark and I said goodbye and was about to walk home, and then she said something and I realized, what am I doing? I need to walk her to her car, so I offered. At this point I was quite comfortable with her and we were joking around. She mentioned something about pool and I told her how I play it as well, and we were literally outside a pool bar, so we went in for a game. The idea of the game was mine. It kind of turned into a night out. After that I paid for the food and everything, but it is how I've been brought up, so I find it really uncomfortable otherwise. Then we went to a nightclub and met her other friends. It's one of the few times I ever went to a club. Normally I don't do that. Just giving a general idea of what kind of person I'm. Also I don't have a lot of friends cause I really struggle to call people my friends even if I go out with them. Also it doesn't mean that I'm antisocial, as I work in customer service and I generally know people all around the campus and am really well respected in my job and apparently have exceptional customer skills. After that we said goodbye. She went home and I went mine. After that interaction she would usually come to see me in the campus and talk to me at the same place. She took me to the beach one day and stuff, so at this point I knew if I asked her out she would say yes, but as I like Jay, so never even thought of asking her out or any intentions of relationship or even romantic attraction. But also I have a philosophy that if someone invites me anywhere I always say yes unless I have something important to do. So we ended up talking for a long time again and left the building together. It was the third time, so I explicitly said to her that this is not a date, and then we went somewhere and had food and stuff and started hanging out together as friends. I'm not very good at explaining this, as you can tell by now, but in my head we kind of became good friends and enjoyed each other's company. One day we had some sort of small argument, and while taking to her on the phone I realized it was my fault. It was actually Will. Taking to her on the phone messaging, we discovered the problem and I apologized for it, although as soon as I figured out it was my fault, but as soon as I did that I felt that she really pressed me after that, as how she's very disappointed in me after she has told me everything, and I felt very gaslighted honestly, and I cried my eyes out cause I felt very guilty, and I was also really upset that I understand how it's my fault, but why would someone who actually cares about me make me feel so bad? I called her and then I communicated everything. She also apologized and said she didn't think I was so upset as we were texting before, so I get that. But after that I actually felt very close to her, as I normally don't cry and also am touch-starved, and find it very hard to share things. So that night we had a really long call, and as I felt closer to her I told her how I like Jay, my supervisor, her colleague but not supervisor, and also at this point they were starting to become friends. Also at this point Jay and me were cool and we never really talked about how I asked her out, but we became close as well. I told S how I'm planning to ask Jay out as soon as I leave this job and how I liked her for such a long time. Personally this was like a very personal thing for me to share. I normally don't do that with anyone. So in my head we have actually become very close friends. After that we were out and she took me to her house as well and we watched a movie together laying on the sofa. No touching or anything, but we both slept there together. Another fact about me, I have never been in a relationship before and only had SSS once in my life. It was because I used to follow a faith and it wasn't permissible, so I kept it that way by choice, but generally I wasn't awkward or anything, and all my life have been getting a lot of female attention. And the only time I had SSS was a one-night stand after I left my faith, as I consider myself a person of high values. Even in that one-night stand I was not trying to mostly do anything, and the girl really liked me, so it happened. Because of my no relationship experience and the reason that I like J, I'm very nervous around her, but with S I was never nervous and just chilling like nothing can ever happen, and it's hard to explain when you are not used to SSS. You can't have it with anyone, it's very different. Anyway, we had a good time, and S told me in the morning that after her traumatic experience this was the first time she slept on the same bed sofa with a guy. And I got the impression that it's probably a common thing, but still I was a bit unsure if it would be considered appropriate or not. Because of my no relationship experience and limited knowledge on the whole subject, for the most part one was in this state where I kind of thought it was normal, but then also a bit unsure, as I have been brought up in a very different environment and even a different country, but generally I have educated myself a lot on a lot of things, so I could also see that how it would seem like I'm generally a very cool guy. Also, I always knew our values didn't align, like even when I said that she told me about her trauma, I knew it's something you don't drop on people, especially when you first meet them, as it happened during our first long convo, when we went for pool and stuff. So I never even considered a relationship or anything with her. But also I won't be like that, I didn't know what was going on. There was something like she seemed interested, but I would never take my brain there, as I was just like never, as I had a very strong crush of J and had been waiting for more than a year. Then I had a sports event which S attended, and we went in her car to drop another coworker who also attended the event. I was very happy as I won the thing and was very tired and sleepy. She dropped me, but we were talking before I left the car and she held my hand and put her head on my shoulder. I had to hug her a few times before, as she would bring her traumatic stuff. That had happened a few times before. In most conversations it was mostly she used to talk a lot and I listened, so I would occasionally hug her to comfort her. Although when we normally meet I don't hug to greet and stuff, as you know I'm touch-starved and I don't like the idea of hugging every girl. Although I jump and do it with men, please don't judge me for that. Part of it is also the way I've been raised, but I'm not trying to blame everything on it. It's also cause I think a guy shouldn't throw himself on every girl he sees and should have more dignity and composure. Although I'm working on it, and if I ever go on a date, which I don't think I ever have, or probably once or twice in my life, I would hug the person. So when she held my hand she also run her fingers through my hair and I did the same, although at somewhere deep in my heart I knew it was inappropriate. But also at this point I was awake for almost 24 hours and had a boxing match in between. But then I went home and nothing else happened. The next day she asked me on the messages that if I was available to watch another movie, as at this point we have a movie list that we have to watch together. It was her idea. I declined as something was a bit strange after the hand-holding and stuff, so I said I had to do some work, and which was true. Another thing about me, I never lie. That is one of the most important things for me in general, and I try to communicate as best as I can. I was in the same spot as usual, and after work she came to me and talked to me for a bit and then invited me again, so I went along. She was home by herself and her housemate was away. As we were watching stuff, her housemate came in with her boyfriend and they went to their room. I was actually a bit surprised, as I normally am not very comfortable in other people's houses and stuff. But they went to their room and were having SSS. We could hear everything clearly and I was very uncomfortable. I guess S was a bit embarrassed or uncomfortable too, so she made a few jokes about how her friend was being too loud. She's never been this loud and this and that. I made a joke as well that everyone's G around us in the movie and upstairs, but in all honesty I was very uncomfortable. We kept watching and she kept on saying that she's feeling very sleepy, and although for whatever reason I was trying to delay going to the bed as much as possible, finally the light started coming in through the blinds. And we decided to go to her room to sleep, as it was not appropriate to sleep on the sofa. I completely get that, so we went to her room and now we are sleeping on the same bed. The whole time I was so uncomfortable, but I didn't say anything. Now I don't know that it was because of my lack of experience in SSS or what, but I was just so uncomfortable. When we were laying, although this part is a bit blur, that how we kissed. But we both know that she initiated it. After the kiss I stopped and I told her that I can't do this. I told her exactly that I really like J. I think she said it's fine. Honestly, this part is a bit blurry, but I was very uncomfortable and I shared something vulnerable about, as she was probably sharing something vulnerable too, and I think we kissed again. IDK if this is my brain playing tricks on me or what, but the last I remember I was closing my eyes really tight and was like, just shut your brain and do it. I don't know what to make of this, but I know I guess I was still very uncomfortable and did it anyway. After it was done I was okay and we did it again, but this time everything was fine. I remember the first thing I said after was, what am I going to tell Jay, which is very inconsiderate of me and a very horrible thing to say. Although I went home the next morning, after 1 or 2 days, S wanted to talk to me and I was like okay. She told me that she had feelings for me and she said though I would be very mad, and I was like, why would I ever be mad if someone tells me that I'm grateful but I like Jay? I know it made her very upset, but it was the truth. I told her how I have been waiting for so long and I just have to ask her, and even if she doesn't like me back I'm willing to take my chances, and there's no way I can be with another girl before that, and I also understand that there's no chance that she deserves someone who gives her full attention and stuff, although she said that would be very pathetic and she would never be with me anyway, which I completely understand. After that, anytime I would say anything about Jay she would be really upset, but in my head I was like, how has it come to this? But anyway, she was quite upset and I was there as well. I'll be very honest, from this point on I consider everything to be my fault. She really cried and stuff and I stayed with her, but we ended up having SSS again. This time I completely accept full responsibility, and I had this belief that it can never happen cause I have full control over myself, but I did it regardless. Which is horrible to her cause at this point she has feelings and she has already told me. I told her how it was just physical for me. At some point she also mentioned that it's physical for her too, but I don't believe that it is possible if you like someone, so my fault completely. After this we kept doing it for around a period of a week, and that was completely my fault, as I could have said no, or at that point she was never the problem, it was all me. She kept telling me that she doesn't have feelings anymore. We cooked together, went to an event together and spent a lot of time together in that week. We both knew what we were doing. She also was about to leave for a 10-day camp, so that was something we were both looking forward to, as everything would settle down in that time. Thought this time, it was a weird kind of situation. I felt very guilty, and rightly so, cause I was doing something wrong considering it was against my values. Whenever I brought up the subject I felt gaslighted, like when I said that I made a mistake after the first time when she told me how she felt. She kept saying that she is not a mistake, and that's a horrible thing to say, but I never actually said she was a mistake or anything. It doesn't even make sense in my head that how can she even be a mistake? If I make a mistake, that is because I did something that I consider against my moral values, so it's something internal for me, but it felt like I'm not supposed to say things like that. I also told her that I was never attracted to her romantically. This one could be considered very harsh, but the way she phrased was very different, like, you keep telling me that I'm ugly. I never said that, but still I understand it's a valid point when she said that if you weren't attracted to me, why were you having SSS with me? Also, I felt gaslighted on other occasions where even after first and second time when she agreed that it doesn't change anything, she kept saying things like, you never notice my hair or compliment me, but the thing is I don't fancy you that way, why do you expect compliments from me? I communicated on occasions and she even apologized, saying that I realized it. But now when I look at it, the whole thing seems like a very toxic situation. If I would ever say anything I had to make sure she's not offended, although I did offend her, but it was so complicated that what was the option? Like, in some ways I tried reminding her that this is not happening. I clearly said this to her, that even if it was possible to develop something between us, I'm willing to give it all up to just find out if Jay would ever be interested, so she should understand I'm not the one for her, to which she said that now she doesn't feel anything towards me after that, but I don't think anything changed. I felt that I could never really truly express my feelings, as I always felt gaslighted, and it was so weird that before I could say anything I would be accused of the exact same thing, which would frustrate me, that how can it even be turned on me. I told her things like the way I feel for Jay I can clearly differentiate, and how there's a pressure on me and I make an effort, and she has to understand unless someone's doing that for her it's unlikely that they like her. When she told me she had feelings first time, she also thought that I would be mad, and she kept on saying that all the friendship part was there, although I doubt that, as if you like someone there's something different, at least that's how I feel about Jay. For me the whole relation started as I was trying to be nice, and when she shared her traumatic experience I was trying to give me support and be a good friend, but I guess it is also like, can you actually abandon someone after they share something like that? Although in my opinion it was a conscious choice that I wanted to be there for her as a friend. Normally I approach my relationships as just give and expect nothing, but when we went to that event, due to these toxic patterns, I asked her a question deliberately to check that if she cares enough to get to know me as well, or is it just that she thinks she likes me but it's driven from insecurities, and that she just feels comfortable sharing information with me. The question was that what are the 3 people she would go on a dinner with? That is something manipulative, I understand, but at that point I was actually questioning the whole relation, as in, is this just a dynamic where I'm being gaslighted into staying, or what is going on, cause I could definitely see the patterns. I understand how it seems like I'm making her look bad, but I was never able to explain these things to her. We were on a call when I was talking about when we did it first time, and as soon as I was trying to explain how I felt, she just said, "Do you feel like you didn't want to do it?" And I was just thinking, and suddenly she was like she's having a panic attack, which I felt that the direction was going in something as non-consensual, which tbh, because of the whole panic attack thing, I was like, no, I don't even think that. And it felt like it was a relief to her, but deep in my heart I actually was questioning the whole thing, as did she just try to manipulate me into thinking that or what? But regardless, I don't mind that, cause after all, everything I did after was completely under my control and I chose to do it. She also has brought in her trauma a few times in conversation to kind of like blame something on that. Then she went on camp, and before that I made it clear again that this has to end, and jokingly she said she always break up with people, so she is going to do it, so I was like okay, and she repeated it. When she was on camp we texted a few times. I went through a bad experience and really had to talk to someone about it. When we ended it, it was like we can just be friends, but very limited, like normal friends, no one-on-one hanging out or going to each other's place or anything inappropriate. At this point I could clearly define what was appropriate and inappropriate. While she was on camp she actually kept messaging me and calling me throughout that bad experience, and she was worried about my safety according to her, but in all honesty I didn't know if I should actually believe her or not, as after I had seen those toxic traits I couldn't completely forget it and was a bit scared to share something, but I was actually quite upset as it was quite a shocking experience. And I called her at the time. I didn't realize why I called her, but as soon as I started taking to her she said that I should wait for her to get there in a few days and she would prefer if I tell her in person. And honestly I was like, does she actually care about me? I do understand that if I had made clear that I really needed to talk about it she would have listened, but this is something I can't make a lot of sense of, as this could be 100% my fault for not communicating clearly. Although, she came back from camp and she said she was going to give me a hug. When I first saw her I felt as she was giving me a bit of attitude. When I asked her she was like, "You said you wanted to be normal friends, so I'm being normal friends," so I was like fine. Then she came to me after work and talked to me about it, but at that point I was in some way over it and just had tried to talk to a few other people, so didn't feel like taking about that experience anymore. Regardless, she gave me a hug. It's been a few days after that and I didn't really message her or anything, cause last few days I had been a bit anxious and was thinking a lot about my life in general, and I was kind of struggling to make this decision, first time ever, that if I should ask Jay out or not, as I felt like I have liked her for such a long time without her even knowing, and I kind of felt like she probably doesn't feel the same for me, as if she did at least she would give me something. But then I was also like, it's still worth asking her and making it clear, but I was actually struggling with it. Although it had nothing to do with S. Just for context, at this point S and J have become very close friends, and although I knew J even before S was ever in there. But in the past she mentioned that she is annoyed that how I like her friend, and I also had to make it clear to her that I liked her even before she ever was in that whole thing. And honestly I believe S didn't want it to work between me and J, but it's fine and I understand that, cause she had feelings, so it's okay. But today S messaged me that if I was coming to the campus, and I said yes. I asked why and she said she wanted to say hi, so I was actually like, this is nice. As soon as I went there she goes like, "I have to talk to you." I'm like okay, and took me out and said that Jay knows, and I'm like, what? She said please don't be mad at me, but I told her and I was actually laughing as what's going on, and I was like it's fine, don't worry about it. And then I asked her what she said and she even told another coworker who is her close friend. As soon as I started thinking about it and she gave more details such as Jay doesn't like you, and I wouldn't be surprised at that at all, but it was not her thing to tell her. When we did it first time she told me that we don't have to tell anyone in the office, which I completely understand, but I also felt that it was a bit manipulative the way she said it. When I asked her what did they say, and she was like, they said the same thing, as like I was in the wrong for the most part, and how can I not see that it's my doing? I get one of S's main arguments when she is like, your words were contradictory to your actions, but I think after all this context I have provided I don't think it's a fair statement to say. Other than that I felt quite upset, and it felt like she has just shared something with people who I have a relationship with, even if Jay doesn't like me or anything, don't care at this point, but there was some sort of relation and I feel like it can never be recovered, and it feels like they have an opinion on me because of this whole thing. S kept telling me that she told them the things how they were as we were cooking together, playing, cuddling in sofa watching movies. Very couples things to do, but I think that is definitely not the full picture, and the most important things are kept out of it, which has shifted the whole narrative into something that is not true. It could be that I was a bit emotional. She asked me if we were still friends and I had to clearly tell her that the moment we slept together the friendship ended. Which made her really upset, and I honestly felt like they all believe that I was the person who is responsible for it all and I have wronged her, which I understand where my mistakes are. But I was so upset that I dropped a few tears and left, and she asked me if I wanted a hug, and honestly I can't even believe that she cared for me ever a bit, as if you ever care for someone I don't think even if they are wrong you would ever make them look bad. although according to her she just told them what happened, keeping her feelings out of it, but I can never believe that, as I have always thought she is very emotional. I was thinking about it so much as what is the right thing to do, where to get the unbiased advice from. I was also thinking it doesn't matter what Jay or anyone thinks of me, I'm okay with that, but I kept thinking what is the right thing to do. Should I give my version of story to them also? I thought once they have developed this opinion on me, it doesn't matter what I tell them, would our relation ever be the same? I also thought, if are these people even worth explaining anything when they have already formed opinions on me based on just one side of the story, knowing clearly, as they are very smart people, that people have different versions of the truth. I don't know, has she just manipulated the whole thing in her favor? I don't even know if she shared the unbiased things. 'Cause she told me that she's been taking to Jay about it for a long time, which would make sense that over time she already has sided with her, as it's basic psychology that once you hear a story multiple times, regardless of the truth, you're inclined towards believing it. S messaged me later on saying that she didn't like the way it ended and wanted to talk, as I have always been there for her when she is upset, and the first thing that came to my mind was, honestly, I never did any of that for her to return the favor, and also at this point I was thinking of posting it on Reddit and getting some unbiased opinion on the matter and clear it. I said that I don't have to add anything, and she said she had to add, so I was like, okay, we can meet. When we met, she asked me what made me upset, and in her mind I was being selfish, and it was 'cause I didn't get the chance to ask Jay out or something, and I was actually disgusted at her that how can she not see this. I understand if she had spoken to her friends, that is okay, which she did as well, although it is also against my values that you share very intimate and personal things with others, but anyway, if she did it with her friends, more power to her, but how can she not see that it was not her decision to make? At least she could have told me first that she wants to speak to Jay or CTHE other colleague. Then she thought if I had said anything to them that would be unfair on her, and that is exactly what I'm saying. If it had to be that way, we could have done it together or anything. Then she asked me if I think she is a bad person, and I'm like, I can't answer this for you. And at this point, what kind of validation she wants is beyond me. Although the only thing I'm confused is that should I clear things or not, is it even worth it? Although I'm very upset if I make her look bad in any way, I genuinely believe there will be no difference between us. Are those people worth explaining anything? I even understand how I'm leaving anyway, and it won't affect me, but it's not about me, it's about doing the right thing, and I don't think S wants me to share my side of the story. She has a problem with me sharing the thing with other coworkers who might be closer to me, but not so much to her, but I would never do it, but how can she expect anything from me at this point? I really need advice on this, and if it's my fault, I don't mind admitting it as long as it's understandable and makes sense. I also, after the last talk, left her car and I told her that I can go home on my own, when she asks me if we were still friends, and I said no, and we can have one last convo after I get some advice on the topic. She was like, what's the point in taking about it if we are not, and I was like, how is she still making everything about her? So I left the car. She said, I'll drop you, but I said please, and left. Although I messaged her apologizing that I left the car and I had to clear my mind. But I really need help with this. I have tried to add as much detail as possible. BLE.